Ever questioned what role religion played in the Second World War? A myriad of stories, facts, and figures have been weaved into the rich tapestry of our history. But one thread remains largely unexplored: the influence and implications of religion during the war years. The forces involved were often indifferent or even hostile towards religion, making its role all the more intriguing. Yet religion served as a potent geopolitical factor, shaping not only the battlefield but also the world map as we know it. It played a significant part in the reconfiguration of Eastern Europe, influencing the political landscape on a global scale. As we peel back the layers of history, we'll discover how the Catholicism-Orthodoxy divide of the medieval era resurfaced in the middle of the 20th century, and how religious life intertwined with political interests. Prepare to delve into a lesser-known facet of this global conflict. The Bolshevik strikes and the collapse of the Russian Empire in 1917 sent shockwaves through European consciousness. Especially the ferocity of attacks on faith induced a sense of horror in a Europe that had, after the tumultuous waves of the French Revolution, found a semblance of balance in its attitude towards religion. The implications were particularly alarming for the various religious sects who now faced the unsettling reality of a state attempting to obliterate faith entirely. In the face of these developments in Russia, the Catholic Church exhibited a rather ambiguous stance. On one hand, the papacy meticulously documented and brought to the world's attention the horrifying faith atrocities occurring in Soviet Russia. On the other hand, they saw a glimmer of hope, a potential opportunity for missionary work in a land where the Vatican's influence had long been barred. In this spirit, the Russicum College was established in Rome, intended for Russian immigrants who had converted to Catholicism. The Congregation for Oriental Churches was also created. However, the urgent and pragmatic issue of securing better conditions for the existing Catholics in Bolshevik Russia soon eclipsed these missionary proselytizing actions. The Holy See took active steps to aid the starving population and expressed its willingness to negotiate a minimum agreement that would allow Catholicism in Russia some measure of freedom. But these discussions dwindled by around 1928, following the Soviet government's stern stance that the situation of Catholics in the USSR was an exclusively internal issue, immune to external interference. This position remained largely unchanged until the rise of Mikhail Gorbachev. Throughout the pontificates of Popes Pius VII and XIV, criticisms of communism grew, paralleling those against Nazism. It was during this period that the intermarium concept began to permeate the political thinking of some representatives of the Catholic Church. This concept envisaged a suprastate structure encompassing traditionally Catholic states of Eastern Europe, such as Poland, Hungary, and Czechoslovakia, under the influence of the Vatican, to counterbalance Nazi Germany and the USSR. Despite the Vatican's efforts, the situation of Catholics in the USSR remained an internal issue until the rise of Mikhail Gorbachev. The papacy of Popes Pius V and XIV saw a rise in criticism towards communism, parallel to their attitudes towards Nazism. During this period, the Catholic Church was not just a passive observer, but actively sought to influence the geopolitical landscape. A significant strategy was the concept of the intermarium, an idea that was gaining ground in some Catholic circles. The intermarium was envisioned as a supra-state structure that would encompass traditionally Catholic Eastern European states. These included Poland, Hungary, and Czechoslovakia. It wasn't merely a coalition of nations, but a union under the influence of the Vatican. The aim was to create a strong bloc that could stand as a counterweight to the growing powers of Nazi Germany and the USSR, the two towering threats of that era. The ambitions of the Catholic Church didn't stop there. They hoped to extend the intermarium's reach beyond these traditionally Catholic nations. The eyes of the Vatican were set on Ukrainians, Romanians, and Belarusians. The Greek Catholic Church, with its deep roots in western Ukraine and Transylvania, was seen as the key to this expansion. Now you might wonder why these particular nations were targeted. The idea was that the Greek Catholic Church could act as a bridge, connecting these predominantly Orthodox populations to Rome. The Vatican hoped that by bringing these Orthodox populations into the Catholic fold, they could solidify the intermarium and, by extension, the influence of the Catholic Church in Eastern Europe. However, this was no easy task. The Orthodox Church had a strong grip on these communities, and the political landscape was fraught with tension. Yet the Catholic Church saw this not as a roadblock but as a challenge to overcome. Their belief was that, through religious unity, they could achieve political strength, creating a formidable front against the rising tide of communism and fascism. In conclusion, the intermarium concept was not just a geopolitical strategy. It was a testament to the Catholic Church's belief in the power of faith as a unifying force, a force that could potentially change the course of history. The intermarium concept was a strategic attempt to create a counterweight to Nazi Germany and the USSR. The role of religion in the Second World War was more significant than it might initially appear. We've journeyed through a fascinating exploration of the intersection of faith and politics during one of the most turbulent periods in history. Our understanding of the war is deepened when we consider the religious implications that often go unnoticed in mainstream discourse. We started our exploration with the Bolshevik strikes and their impact on Europe's religious landscape. The collapse of the Russian Empire in 1917 sent shockwaves through the European consciousness, particularly due to the violence of the attacks on faith. This was a society that had found a balance in its attitude towards religion, and the Bolshevik strikes challenged this equilibrium. The religious cults, unsurprisingly, were the most perturbed, witnessing for the first time a state attempting to abolish faith. The Vatican's struggle with the USSR was another intriguing aspect of our journey. The Catholic Church found itself in a precarious position, documenting and publicizing the atrocities against faith in Soviet Russia, whilst harboring hopes of a new era of missionary work in the country. The Church's attempts to negotiate better conditions for Catholics in Russia were met with resistance, with the Soviet government asserting its stance that the situation of Catholics was an internal issue, a position that remained unchanged until Mikhail Gorbachev's reign. We also delved into the concept of intermarium, a proposed suprastate structure incorporating traditionally Catholic Eastern European states envisioned as a counterbalance to Nazi Germany and the USSR. This concept highlighted the intertwining of religious and political interests, with the Greek Catholic Church serving as a potential connecting link between nations. Reflecting on this journey, we see how religion and politics were not separate entities during the Second World War. They were intertwined, each influencing and shaping the other. This exploration underscores the complexity and depth of the war's history, extending beyond the battlefield to the realm of faith and belief. As we've seen, religion not only survived this tumultuous period, but also played a crucial role in shaping the geopolitical landscape of the time.